Under the vaulted obsidian arches of the Imperial Court, 12 alien species sat in gilded silence, each one robed, jeweled, and coiled in the pride of their respective dominions. The Chamber of Stars, as the palace hall was called, shimmered with refracted starlight cast from artificial suns embedded in the ceiling. Great banners representing the council's power fluttered in slow, dignified motion, aided by carefully programmed airflows. And into this sanctum of pomp and paranoia, she walked. Captain Eliza Ryker of Earth, 5'8", calm stride, crisp black uniform with the faintest scarring on the sleeves. No ceremonial cape. No decorative medals. Just a worn leather holster, a faint smirk, and eyes that flicked over the court with the clinical detachment of someone inspecting a crime scene. She bowed. Not too deeply. Not too casually. Just enough to be ambiguous. From his raised platform, the Galactic Emperor, sovereign of the core systems, supreme arbiter of the seven arms, and wearer of far too many rings, narrowed his amphibious golden eyes. "You are the human?" Eliza raised her head. "Last I checked, your radiance." Several members of the court shifted uncomfortably. "She doesn't even kneel," muttered Vizier Torvek, a gelatinous being with a triple-lobed brain and chronic suspicion of bipedals. "She also didn't die at your last ceremony," the Emperor whispered back. "That already makes her more useful than the last 6. A hollow silence followed as Eliza stepped forward and calmly surveyed the room. 12 ministers, 4 hidden weapons, 1 power-dampening field, 2 separate oxygen mixes to accommodate varied species, and 1 nervous STRYL ambassador who looked one cough away from desertion. "Permission to speak freely?" she asked. The Emperor blinked. "You don't already?" "I like to pretend I'm polite," Eliza said. "Keeps things friendly." And then she smiled. It wasn't the kind of smile the court was used to. No flared mandibles, no bioluminescent approval signals, no lipless snarls of superiority. Just a human grin. Straight teeth, relaxed posture, eyes sharp enough to flay intention from flesh. Ambassador XYLL of the Crystal Swarm hissed softly. They used that expression to signal aggression. Eliza heard it. "No, Ambassador. That's our other smile." A moment of bewildered stillness. "Why?" asked Torvek. "Would the Emperor entrust his life to an Earthling?" "Because she's the only species that didn't try to bribe me first," the Emperor said, leaning back on his throne. "Also, she brought coffee. I like coffee." Eliza reached into her satchel and offered the Emperor a fresh, thermal mug. The scent filled the chamber, rich, bitter, utterly primitive. Half the court recoiled like it was acid. "And what's in it?" Minister Calthux asked, nose appendages twitching. "Caffeine. We use it to make poor decisions faster." Chuckles. Nervous, trailing chuckles. Eliza's eyes met Calthux's. "Would you like a sip?" The minister shook his 3 heads in unison. Now came the ceremony. The Emperor waved a jeweled finger, and an orb of glowing light descended between them. The court protocol AI engaged. State name, species, origin, and allegiance. Eliza Ryker. Homo sapiens. Earth, Sol System. Allegiance. To the terms of my contract, strictly speaking. "You accept the role of personal protector to the Galactic Emperor?" the AI asked. "I do." "You accept absolute loyalty?" "As much as a human can give." "We tend to have commitment issues." That earned a slight snort from the Emperor. The AI continued. "You acknowledge that if you fail in your duty, your species may suffer diplomatic sanctions? I'd imagine they'd be more concerned if I succeeded in certain duties." "Do you carry weapons?" Eliza unclipped her holster and laid it gently on the platform. The gun was matte black, marked with wear, and absurdly small. The court stared. "That's it," sneered one senator. "No bioacid rounds? No psychic payload?" "It's a 10 millimeters with Earth-grade hollow points," Eliza said calm. "It doesn't need to look special. It just works." A pause. Minister Garrett, from the ruthless Shervan Dominion, leaned forward. "You have no shields, no armor. How do you intend to protect his radiance?" Eliza stepped closer to the throne and spoke without turning her head. "I plan to kill threats before they reach him. And if they're subtle, I smile first." The Emperor gave a quiet wheeze. Was that laughter? Guard snarled. You imply Earth combat doctrine is superior. I imply Earth doctrine exists. The silence that followed stretched long enough to sharpen. And then the lights flickered. A high-pitched whine rose from the floor, a single note scream. The antimatter sensors along the outer rim lit up crimson. Intrusion detected. The AI boomed. Emergency protocol. It didn't finish. A flash of movement. One of the ceiling tiles peeled back. A sleek, clawed drone with a toxin-laced spine dropped straight toward the Emperor's throne. Eliza moved. In one fluid step, she kicked the table upward, redirecting the drone's descent, drew her sidearm, and fired twice. The drone hit the floor in 3 twitching pieces. "Everyone okay?" she asked, checking her mug. "Coffee's safe. We're good." The court stared. The Emperor, blinking slowly, turned to Torvek. "That was your drone, wasn't it?" Torvek began to sputter, but Eliza cut in. "It's not treason if you fail and get caught. That's just bad manners." Guards rushed in belatedly. Too late. Too slow. The court had seen it. The casual motion. The accuracy. The fact that Eliza hadn't raised her voice or changed her expression. The Emperor stood. "You may all leave us." One by one, the ministers slithered, shuffled, and hissed their way out, casting glances over their shoulders, as though afraid she'd follow them. Eliza remained perfectly still. When the chamber was finally empty, the Emperor spoke. "You're not here just to guard me, are you?" "No, sir. You're here to watch them. And protect you from them if necessary." A long silence followed. The Emperor's golden eyes studied her. "I chose a human to unsettle them. I didn't expect it to unsettle me." Eliza offered her second smile, the truly unsettling one. "Don't worry. That just means your instincts work." He laughed. It wasn't a pleasant sound, more like air wheezing through old water lungs. "They'll try again. They'll fail again. And if they don't, I won't be your problem anymore." The Emperor considered that. "I'm too old for suspense, Captain Ryker." She shrugged. "We age faster. Suspense is all we've got." He chuckled again, then nodded. Dismissed. Eliza turned and walked toward the great doors. Outside, she could already feel their eyes on her. Hidden cameras, psychic sensors, embedded microphones disguised as ceremonial moss. She knew they were watching. Let them. As she reached the marble archway, she paused and looked over her shoulder. "By the way," she said casually, "next time someone tries an attack, tell them to be faster. I get cranky when I'm interrupted before breakfast." The doors hissed shut behind her. And in the chamber where galactic law was shaped, a very old Emperor sat back in his throne, staring at the remnants of the shattered drone. He muttered softly. She didn't even reload. And for the first time in years, he was afraid. The Imperial Gardens were designed to project peace. Rows of bioluminescent flora arranged in symmetrical spirals, scent dispersion drones mimicking the pollen wafts of homeworlds long gone. Somewhere in the center of this perfectly artificial serenity, Captain Eliza Ryker was pacing in loose circles while eating something wrapped in foil. 2 diplomats whispered behind a tree. "Is that meat?" "From a tube, I think." "Is that how they feed their soldiers?" "It's how we feed ourselves on vacation," Eliza called without turning. Her voice was light, but laced with steel. "You should see what we eat during wartime." The tree behind which the diplomats hid rustled violently as they fled. Eliza took another bite and grinned. She didn't enjoy scaring aliens. Not in the traditional sense. But there was something comforting about how easy it was. Back home, this kind of work would take weeks. Here, all it took was honesty. She reached a small bench carved from the bones of a dead moon beast, a diplomatic gift turned lawn furniture, and stretched out. From a distance, she looked like a woman taking a break from yoga. Up close, she was tracking 3 security drones with her peripheral vision and had a blade palmed just below her right thigh. A throat cleared. It belonged to Minister Garrett, the Shurvan from a previous day, whose ceremonial armor now looked like it had been polished out of guilt. He stood with the stiffness of someone who'd never felt safe since the drone incident. "Captain Ryker." "Minister," Eliza replied. "Care for some earth jerky? Tastes like fear and salt." Garrett declined. Visibly. "You are." Well, let me be candid. You're making everyone extremely uncomfortable. That's good. If they're relaxed, I'm not doing my job. He shifted awkwardly, his tall, segmented frame bending like a folding chair. It is customary for bodyguards to remain discreet. You are not discreet. I'm not a shadow minister. I'm the knife on the table. The shadow's already in the room. You just haven't noticed yet. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Why must your species speak in riddles? We don't. We speak in warnings disguised as jokes. It makes people more likely to laugh before they scream. Eliza stood, dusted off her pants, and began walking toward the main concourse, leaving Gara to ponder whether she'd just issued a threat. The next scheduled appointment was a diplomatic meeting between the Emperor and the High Consul of the Veari Cluster, an alliance of neural net-linked amphibians who communicated largely through scent and electrogesture. Eliza entered the throne room 2 minutes early and, in typical human fashion, disrupted the entire setting by sneezing. The Veari flinched in horror. "My apologies," Eliza said, pinching the bridge of her nose. "Pollen from the Carcolian moon lotus. We use it for detergent back home." The consul looked to the Emperor. "Why does she speak?" "She's human," the Emperor replied. "They tend to speak before they act. Sometimes during. Why is she here at the table?" "I trust her judgment." Eliza grinned. "Also, I carry the universal translator. Yours was hacked last week. You didn't notice." Gasps. The consul's skin tone shifted from tranquil blue to livid orange. "I assure you, Earth is not accusing you," Eliza finished. "Just reminding you that we notice things you don't. Like audio lag in encrypted messages. That kind of thing." The consul looked visibly shaken. The Emperor sipped his coffee, suppressing a smirk. After the meeting adjourned, Eliza caught a whisper of footsteps too soft for palace servants and too coordinated for diplomats. She made a detour into one of the disused artifact chambers, columns of old banners, armor, and shattered weapons from forgotten wars. She was halfway past a display case when a cloaked figure stepped out of the shadows. "You should leave," it rasped. "You are not wanted here." Eliza didn't reach for her weapon. She reached for a candy. "Threatening someone with a candy in her mouth," she muttered, unwrapping it. "You know, on Earth we have a saying, make them laugh, then watch who's still smiling after the punch." "I don't understand," the figure said. "That's the point." He lunged. She ducked under the blow, grabbed his wrist mid-strike, and slammed him into a pillar with enough force to dislodge old stone dust. He writhed. She twisted. "Here's a better one," she whispered. "Don't bring a knife to a human's bad mood." She dropped him in a pile of old ceremonial shields and walked away. Back in her quarters, Eliza flicked on her personal comms. The hologram of an older woman appeared, gray-haired, ice-eyed. "Earth Command. No name. Just rank." "You've poked the nest," the commander said. "That's what I'm here for." "They're starting to fracture. Multiple ministers petitioning the Emperor to remove you. At least one is buying weapons from outside the Empire." Eliza stretched. "They're scared. That's good. They should be. So should the Emperor. I think he is." Then we proceed to Phase 2. Observation window closes in 72 hours. Make sure the trap is in place. The screen flicked off. Eliza didn't smile. Not this time. Later that evening, during the formal court dinner, she sat at the far end of the Emperor's long marble table, next to an alien noble who spent most of the meal shifting uncomfortably and trying not to make eye contact. Eliza picked up a knife and held it to the light. "Did you know this design's based on a Terran trench blade? We used these when bullets weren't available." The noble choked on his gelatinous meal. Across the table, one of the diplomats asked, "Do you always speak like that?" "What, casually?" "Like, every sentence is a warning." "It's not a warning," Eliza said. "Warnings give people a chance to prepare. This is just conversation." The Emperor chuckled. The next course arrived. It smelled faintly of ozone and burned starch. Eliza pushed it away and took out a ration bar from her pocket. "You eat those even during formal dinners?" the noble beside her asked, horrified. "On Earth, we call this a survival mechanism, also known as not dying from alien cuisine." A ripple of discomfort traveled down the table. Eliza took a slow bite. That night, as she returned to her quarters, a package awaited her. No label, no seal, just a note from a friend in the court. She scanned it for toxins. None. She scanned for explosives. Clean. Inside, a sealed envelope. A single sentence typed in the Emperor's cipher. Some of your enemies aren't ours. Be ready. Eliza sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the message. Then she reached into a wall panel and pulled out a hidden case, revealing 3 gleaming steel cubes, non-networked, manually triggered, and very human. She whispered, "Guess we start tomorrow." At sunrise, she accompanied the Emperor to the ceremonial beacon, a once-every-5 years ritual in which the Empire broadcasts unity to its outer colonies. It was theater, empty pomp. But today, the outer colonies would not hear peace, because Eliza had rerouted the frequency. As the Emperor raised his staff and spoke the words of ancient harmony, every screen across the court chamber flickered. Then, the feed changed. A video began to play, grainy footage, time-stamped from 20 years ago. A massacre on a frontier world. Civilians, burned homes, Shirvan troops with Imperial insignias, clearly executing what had been officially denied for decades. Eliza didn't blink. The ministers erupted. The Emperor's staff clattered to the floor. Chaos spread like plasma fire. Denials, screams, translation failures. The room descended into confusion. Eliza walked to the center and stood atop the central hologram projector. "Let's make something clear," she said. Her voice was soft, but carried. "I didn't show that because I hate you. I showed it because Earth has a problem with secrets. We tend to solve them the same way we solved war." The room fell silent. "You think Earth's backward, that we lack your tech, your elegance, your diplomatic nuance. But we're not here for elegance." She pulled something from her belt, a simple black box, and set it on the projector. "We're here to evaluate." The Emperor finally found his voice. "Evaluate what, Ryker? Whether this empire deserves to survive us." She stepped off the platform and walked out. Behind her, the box blinked once. The court didn't understand what that blink meant. Not yet. But soon, very soon, they would. The chamber was quiet now, the kind of quiet that made ministers sweat. High Minister Calthux had not moved for 7 minutes. His 3 eyes fixed on the black box Eliza Ryker had left on the central projector. Its single red light blinked once every 10 seconds. No sound. No heat signature. No data leak. Just a silent countdown. Or maybe nothing at all. And that was the worst part. "It's bluff," hissed Garrett, clutching his ceremonial staff like a weapon. "Earth is too primitive for psychic triggers. That thing's probably a glorified paperweight." "Then why are you standing behind me?" asked Torvek, shifting his gelatinous mass farther from the device. The Emperor, uncharacteristically still on his throne, turned toward the court's lone human sentinel, who stood in the archway, hands clasped behind her back, like she had all the time in the galaxy. "Eliza, your radiance. What is that device?" She smiled. "Insurance." "Against what?" She took a few steps forward, slow and steady. Every eye followed. "Against what always happens when someone thinks humans are bluffing." Calthux bristled. "You do bluff." "Oh, we absolutely do," she replied. "In fact, we've elevated it to an art form. But bluffing is only dangerous if you're willing to follow through. And Earth always follows through." "Primitive doesn't mean powerless," muttered one of the younger ministers. Eliza clapped once. Loud. Sharp. "Give that one a medal. Or, at least, don't poison his drink." The court didn't laugh. Not anymore. Eliza stopped 10 feet from the blinking box. Her voice dropped an octave. "We never pretended to be better than you. We just let you assume we were worse." Then the doors to the chamber burst open. A guard stumbled in, pale and shaking. "Your Radiance." 3 dreadnoughts just dropped out of slip space above Orbit Ring 12. No flags. No call signs. They're broadcasting an ancient Terran war chant on loop. The Emperor rose. Terran. English. Old Earth dialect. Something about thunderstruck. Garrett lunged forward. That's an act of war. It's karaoke, Eliza said flatly. Well, karaoke with guns. The Emperor stared at her. Did you authorize this? No, she said truthfully. They did. They. Earth Defense Command. Specifically, a division we refer to as Friends of Planets You Forgot You Burned. You can't be serious. I am, and they definitely are. The court erupted. Shouts, gestures, threats. Someone tried to reach the security console. Eliza beat him there by 4 steps and locked him out with a flick of her badge. No one leaves, she said. Not until we've had this conversation properly. The Emperor stepped down from his throne, robes trailing behind him. You're escalating this. No, Eliza said. You did. When you hired Earth's most dangerous weapon and asked her to sit still in a room full of backstabbers. She turned to the council. You wanted to protect her. Earth sent a mirror. And the mirror has claws, whispered Calfax. No, she replied. The mirror has perspective. She walked slowly along the line of ministers. You invaded 29 pre-jump civilizations in the past 70 years. You erased 5. Buried the evidence of 3. And when Earth asked about it, you called us naive. Garrett spat. Because you are. You cling to outdated tech and Stone Age tactics. Eliza stopped in front of him. And yet, somehow, we're the ones in your throne room, flipping switches you didn't know existed. He stared at her. She leaned closer. Ask yourself, Minister, what kind of species chooses not to use their best toys until everyone's convinced they have none? Before he could answer, the box on the projector blinked twice. A synchronized flash. The chamber lights dimmed. The hologram above the box flickered to life. It wasn't Eliza. It was a woman in a black coat and mirrored shades, sitting in what looked like the bridge of a Terran command ship. Her accent was crisp. American. Hey, Court of Galactic, whatever. I'm Admiral Jennings. You may remember my species from such classics as that one time you tried to classify us as livestock. Silence. I've got 3 dreadnoughts in high orbit. Armed. Aimed. Mostly bored. This is not a threat. Pause. This is a test. The image vanished. The blinking stopped. And just like that, the box powered down. Garrett was the first to speak. She warned us. She actually warned us in a joke. The Emperor sat down, very slowly. His voice was barely above a whisper. What do you want? Eliza approached the throne. Recognition. Consequences. Balance. You mean control? No, she said. That's your word. Ours is restraint. The kind you never showed. She looked to the guards at the edge of the room, still frozen. Tell your soldiers to stand down. They'll never take orders from. They'll take them from the only person who didn't blink during a coup attempt last week, she said. I watched your guards hesitate. I remember. One by one, the guards lowered their weapons. The Emperor rubbed his eyes, old and tired. And if I say no, if I send you back to Earth in chains. She leaned in. Then you better pray Earth doesn't send someone meaner next time. Meaner. I've met him. He teaches kindergarten now. Retired after vaporizing a black site with a lunch tray. The Emperor let out a shaky breath that might have been laughter. Eliza turned to the room, addressing them all. You wanted to understand humans. Here's your crash course. She raised one finger. We do not bluff. Second finger. We let others underestimate us because it's cheaper than war. Third. When we smile, you have 3 seconds to check if your will is up to date. And then she held up all 5. But if you sit and listen and change, we can be the best friends you ever had. Silence. Then a single slow clap. From the shadows, a new figure emerged. Dark skin, buzz cut, wearing a Terran diplomatic badge that hadn't existed yesterday. Nice speech, Ryker, the man said. Bit long, but the ending sticks. Ambassador DeWitt, she said, not surprised. Emperor, DeWitt said, nodding respectfully. Earth is prepared to assist with internal stabilization, pending treaty conditions. The Emperor looked around. His court, his guards, his fear, and the smiling human woman standing before him. He nodded. Very well. Eliza turned, walking toward the exit. As she passed DeWitt, he leaned in. You always got a monologue? She smirked. Helps them sleep at night. You think they'll sleep? She glanced back. No. But they'll think twice before trying to make us. And with that, she left them to their own silence. The Empire would never be the same. And they would never again hear a human joke the same way. The capital skies burned with the golden streaks of descending orbital fire, non-lethal, calibrated, and terrifyingly precise. Each bolt of light hit exactly where it was meant to. Empty hangars, unmanned towers, isolated power grids. No deaths. No collateral. Just the unmistakable sound of control being seized without permission. The people of the Galactic Empire looked up and saw not war, but demonstration. In the throne chamber, chaos reigned quieter. Ministers whispered behind hands, their voices cracking under the weight of realization. The air, once perfumed and dignified, now reeked of ozone, tension, and fear. The central power conduits had been remotely overridden. Defense systems looped in standby. Communications ran through Terran relays. The Empire had not been attacked. It had been dissected. And standing at the center of it all was Eliza Ryker. She hadn't moved since the first orbital strike. She didn't need to. Every motion now was metaphor. I thought you were here to protect me, the Emperor said, not with accusation, but with something far more dangerous, clarity. Eliza turned toward him, slowly, calmly. I was. And now. Her eyes met his, bright with purpose. Now, I'm here to report. Report to whom? Her smile was subtle this time. Tired, maybe. Or empathetic. To Earth. To command. To the ones who sent me here under the label of Bodyguard. Because calling me what I really am would have made this happen sooner. The Emperor's shoulders sagged. You were never here for me. I was never here against you either. That's the part everyone gets wrong. Behind her, the holographic walls of the chamber flickered. Terran maps overlaid across the stars, tactical dossiers tagged with Imperial faces. Internal schematics, behavioral analysis, power structures, pressure points. It wasn't espionage. It was assessment. You infiltrated us. No, Eliza said. You invited me. We just accepted the invitation for what it really was. Garrett staggered toward her, voice hoarse. You've humiliated the Empire. Undermined our sovereignty. She turned to him. No, Minister. We showed you your own reflection. You're just angry it didn't look as powerful as you imagined. He raised a trembling finger. This is manipulation. Psychological warfare. It's evaluation, she said. We wanted to see what kind of civilization you really were when you didn't think anyone was watching. Calthux stepped forward, stunned. You think you're above judgment? No, Eliza replied. We just already passed it. Silence. The Emperor sat again, his golden eyes clouded. He looked at her, not as a threat, not as a weapon, but as a mirror. What was the test? Eliza looked around at the chamber, then back at him. It was simple. How you treat the weak. How you handle fear. What you do when your power is questioned. She stepped closer. And most of all, how you react to a smile. The Emperor's voice trembled now. So this is what? Occupation. Not even close, said another voice from the chamber entrance. Ambassador DeWitt entered, flanked by two more Terran officers, each in formal dress, unarmed, expressionless. Behind them hovered a projection disc, and when activated, a new figure shimmered into view. An older woman, cold-eyed, decorated. The chair of the Terran Galactic Advisory Committee. This is not occupation, the hologram said. This is course correction. We don't want your planets. We don't want your throne. We want your future to be one where no child vanishes into forced servitude, no species is sterilized for resource efficiency, and no lie is wrapped in the flag of progress. Garrett whispered, That's impossible. Not for humans, the chair said. DeWitt folded his hands. We didn't come for revenge. We came for record. He pointed at the holographic dossiers circling the chamber. You chose rule through fear. You taught obedience over unity. And you built an empire of silence. Eliza stepped forward again. We're just here to ask, what happens now that everyone heard it? Calthux's voice cracked. What if we refuse? Eliza's expression didn't change, but her voice, low and firm, carried across the chamber like thunder wrapped in silk. Then we stop asking. That silence, sharp, punctuated, final, hung long and heavy. The Emperor exhaled. His voice, when it returned, was more fragile than regal. What do you recommend? Eliza didn't gloat. She didn't mock. She simply answered. Give up control over the planets you stole. Set elections where there were only heirs. Replace propaganda with truth. And start asking your own people what kind of future they want. The Emperor laughed softly. And if they want chaos? Eliza smiled. Then at least it'll be their chaos. The hologram blinked out. DeWitt turned and left without another word. The two officers followed. The chamber lights returned. Power systems rebooted. No alarm sounded. It was over. And yet, none of them felt like victors. The ministers retreated in silence. Eliza remained. The Emperor looked up at her one final time. Why me? Because, she said, you were smart enough to hire the monster before the other monsters arrived. He shook his head. You think yourself a monster? No, she said. I think of myself as a shepherd. But in a galaxy like this, we don't carry crooks. She holstered her weapon, tapped her wrist, and the entire chamber dimmed again, not from power loss, but from transmission. A final message, broadcast across every world in the Empire. It was her, staring into the feed, calm, confident. I am Captain Eliza Ryker, human, Terran. Behind her, stars, Sol, Earth, a world not of shining towers, but real stone and fire and storm. We did not come to conquer. We came to count. Cut to footage, Imperial troops standing down, civilians waving strange banners, alien children smiling beside human medics. We didn't bring war. Cut to orbital footage, dreadnoughts in a perfect, still grid above core planets. We brought the end of pretending. Cut to her face again, and her final words. Your story isn't over, but someone had to flip the page. We're just the ones who stopped letting you write it in pencil. The broadcast ended. In the vast, stunned stillness of the Empire, rebellion didn't rise. Understanding did. And above it all, orbiting silently, the Terran fleet began to leave. No conquest, no banners, just a reminder that when humans came smiling, they already knew how the game ended.